Thank you and good afternoon. This is Sam Vaughn for Sam's Sports Report. We start with the Brain Aneurism, Trish Report, Part 3, who died about a month ago. I believe it was at the end of April. End of April. I am doing this podcast for my friend Trish. In support of her, she had suffered through a brain aneurysm. And this is what I want to focus on for a little while. Hopefully I can do as many episodes as I can. A brain aneurysm is like a form of a ball or a form that is in your brain like a tumor. It can raise your headache level to a 10 out of 10. The worst one of the brain aneurysm has ever had. Light can be bright in eyes, and recommended that too much light needs to be dimmed as much as possible. I remember my Friend Trish saying, "It's too bright in here." Your vision can change. Usually though, one eye becomes the weaker of the eye. This is according to Prism Health. It can cause visual symptom strokes. Your face can drop. The only option 20 years ago was to open the brain. Now they have a
craniotomy is
surgery that involves going through is to expose your brain. I am going to let you know the talk technology is better known by him. He is a doctor. One thing they are trying to do is block the aneurysm. They use stents that the doctor talks about. Again, he knows more than me, but to provide flow through the brain in which the brain aneurysm produces change of direction. You want to change that flow back to normal flow of the brain. There are different therapies for everyone, just like there are different talk therapies for everyone. Here's more on brain aneurysms.
If you look at an aneurysm, it's a bulge from a blood vessel. So what happens is that the blood vessel can get weak and the bulge can get bigger and an aneurysm forms. Most of these aneurysms take place where there's a forking of two blood vessels. So in other words, if you have one blood vessel and it gets into two blood vessels, right at the fork of that blood vessel, which we call the bifurcation, that's the technical word, an aneurysm can form. If you look at the blood flow hemodynamically, it goes in and it tries to go this way and it tries to go that way. But right at that crotch area where it has really nowhere to go, it's trying to go this way, it's trying to go that way, it causes that stress on the crotch of the blood vessel, and that blood vessel right there can get weak, it can bulge out, and that's where the formation of the aneurysm actually comes from. In terms of symptoms of an aneurysm, if an aneurysm were to be symptomatic, and what I mean by symptomatic, it's bleeding or leaking some blood. Most people have the worst headache of their lives, so they describe it as something that they've never experienced. It's 10 out of 10 pain. It's sudden, and then there could be sensitivity to light, there could be some nausea, vomiting. They'll know that something is wrong. Now, the other things that are a little bit more subtle, if your vision is changing because of how well you see from one eye, and I'm not talking about both eyes, it's usually one eye, you ought to get that checked out. And the reason is because aneurysms can grow right where your nerve is that goes to your eye, and that can cause visual symptoms. The less common things are stroke-like symptoms. For instance, if you're having trouble moving one side of the body, your face is drooping, you have trouble expressing yourself, all those things can come from an aneurysm causing symptoms. In terms of treatment of aneurysms, we've come a long way. Maybe up to about 20 years ago, the only option that we had was opening the brain and going from the outside, and that's called a craniotomy. And I myself do it. I have colleagues in neurosurgery who do it. A newer technology that's come out and it's just advancing rapidly, it's called an endovascular method. And endovascular refers to going through the blood vessel. So now instead of making an incision and going from the outside, we're gaining access into the blood vessel most of the time through the femoral artery, which is the artery in the groin, and we're sneaking up catheters, wires, up to the area of the aneurysm. We're able to, under very high-tech X-ray technology, direct these catheters and wires to the area of the aneurysm. We could deploy the coils, and we're trying to physically block the flow of blood into the aneurysm. So it's a physical barrier. So that's one way of treatment. Now there's even newer technology with stents. One of the stents that we use commonly is basically a flow diverting stent. It's a stent that goes into the normal blood vessel. The holes of the stent are so tiny that they divert the flow into the aneurysm, and over time the aneurysm doesn't see the amount of blood flow that it used to see, and it just keeps shrinking and shrinking. We try to individualize the therapy to the patient. We don't have sort of one of those things like everyone gets this, everyone gets that. It's very much a thought out process where we say, well, this therapy is better for this individual, that therapy is better for this individual. So I think that when you tailor that therapy to the individual, taking into consideration all the factors, the outcomes are most of the time much better.
The Royals are the top story in Kansas City, even though there are conference finals going on. When you're 11 games over 500, you are the story of the town, especially when you were picked to go to get just 75 wins. The Royals are 39-19 and surprising everybody, overachieving right now to what the fans and even the biggest fan thinks. The Royals have a bunch of players coming part of the action last night, having 6 RBIs last night. Salvador Perez had a homer. The biggest hit was by Hunter Renfroe, who batted in 2 to give that lead at one time, 8-1 Royals. The Royals scored 6 in the 6th inning. It was 1-0, then 2-0, then 2-1. Then in the 6th, they got 6 to make it. Tigers would add 1 in the 7th. Royals would add 1 in the 8th to make the final 8-3. Said Hunter Renfroe, who was struggling on the season, who hits 200, got the biggest hit of the night. Bobby Witt Jr. is still 3rd in the MVP, was 2nd a while ago. And the MVP odds, Yankees' Aaron Judge and Juan Soto are ahead of him, but you can't tell me that's because those two play for the New York Yankees. Obviously, if you play in New York, you have a better chance of winning the MVP. New York is the best team in baseball right now. Royals' timely hitting has been good. The Royals' weaknesses right now are the bottom of the lineup in the bullpen. We'll talk about that more as we get closer to the deadline, as we are still more than 3 months away. The Royals will be in it till the end. Winning a division or a wild card spot are all into play. 2 weaknesses, what I said, is the bullpen and the hitting. The 5 through 9 lineup is not their strength. The top of the lineup is really good. The 2 top guys in the lineup are really, really good. The 3rd is not the greatest. You probably want a better 3rd hitter. But the 4th is having one hell of a season. And Salvador Perez, he is swinging the best bat, his best bat of his career. His average is high. He's taking more pitches. He's taking more walks. He's having a career year probably his second best season, as he did have one season where he led the major leagues in home runs, but is hitting for a better average. One of the best defense in baseball and top 8 pitching. One of those reasons is Seth Lugo, a major league veteran, and pitching the best he has of his career. Michael Wacha, who is pitching really well, and Alec Marsh, who has an ERA of 4.30 in his career in the minor leagues, but has an ERA under 3 in the major leagues. And Cole Reagans has the stuff to be an ace. Now, right now, it would probably be Lugo is the best starter right now, as he's probably the best starter in the American League, or one of the best. Next would be Cole Reagans. Then third would be Michael Wacha. Fourth, probably Brady Singer. And fifth, Alec Marsh. Alex Marsh is also pitching well, excellent. 2.43 ERA. Speaking of Alec Marsh, he will go for the Royals tonight. Casey McKenzie will go for the Tigers. Game time is at 6:40. If the playoffs begin today, and for sure they don't, and for sure the Royals are not definitely in the playoffs, but they are on their way. Seth Lugo would be the number 1 starter. Number 2 would be Cole Reagans. Number 3 would be Michael Wacha. Number 4 would be Brady Singer or Alec Marsh if they wanted to use a 5th starter, or they could do an opener. The Royals' only problem is Cleveland is their division, and the Guardians still have the lead with their record of 31-17, and the Royals are 1.5 back as they are 30-19. For the Tigers tonight, as the Tigers are a game under 500 after last night's loss, the Tigers will have Casey Menzie on the mound. He's having a good year with a 3.50 ERA. 8 games, just 1-2 though. And we're in the bottom of the first. The Tigers went 1-2-3. Alec Marsh shut him down. 1-2-3 and got 1 K. Bottom 1 in that game. The Braves and Cubs have started. Tonight it's Javar Asarda for the Cubs, and for the Braves it will be Charlie Morton on the mound. Top 1. That game is tied at 0. The Orioles and Cardinals are just getting underway. We'll post the podcast as we go, the scores as we go on. Lance Lynn is on the mound for the Cardinals, and for the Orioles, it will be Kyle British for the O's. Game is just underway. And in the NBA tonight, we've got conference finals, as we had a day off from the NBA, as the day before the Mavericks advanced over the Thunder. Tonight, it'll be the Pacers and Celtics in the conference finals. The Celtics are favored to win it all. The Pacers took Game 7 on the road, 130-109 against the Nuggets. And then in 3 sports, hockey and basketball, all road teams won in 2 days. 2 in basketball and 1 in hockey. Tracy Helberton will be a player to watch out for the Pacers. And Jason Tatum will be a player to watch out for Boston. Boston versus Pacers. Conference finals begins at 7 p.m. Central and 8 p.m. Eastern. And the Celtics are favored by 10.5. And that's it for Game 1. The Celtics to host. There are no games in the NHL tonight. The Oilers took Game 7 and impossible game they shouldn't have taken. But they did, and they won. And the Canucks allowed 3 goals. Probably we talked about the 2 they shouldn't have won, and that allowed the third team to win on the road in 7 days. This time it was in hockey. The hockey playoffs resume tomorrow, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Panthers Rangers in the conference finals. Face-off is tomorrow at 7. This is Sam Vaughn for Sam Sports Report.